Bias in the gun industry. With my channel growing, I've begun to receive some of the perks, being a growing firearms gear channel. Advertisement is expensive, so many companies look to essentially get low-cost advertisement by giving away free gear with the stipulation that said gear must be reviewed. Considering most gun YouTubers are either in the red, negative money game, or just scraping by such that McDonald's management looks like a six-figure position, this symbiotic relationship ends up being quite appealing for many, and something both parties, especially the YouTuber, wants to preserve. The viewer, though, brings up the understandable question: is this review biased? And that brings up the entire topic I mean to cover today: bias within the gun industry, specifically within gun or gear reviews. Is the data I'm presenting as the reviewer of good quality? Is it valid? Is validity preserved? Is the conclusion being tainted by the receiving of a free product or other intervening variables? Now, a lot of times this isn't relevant, unlike what people say, as a lot of reviews I see are just product descriptions with a "yeah, I liked it" at the end, which might as well be an ad read. No concerns of bias because no valuable information is being exchanged. However, for the reviews where the review is being packaged and sold as I use this piece of gear, here are my thoughts and if it's good or not, we need to discuss bias. What is bias? Bias, simply put, is the usually subconscious, but sometimes conscious, usage of past experience or prejudice to influence on how you view something and convey something. To keep this not esoteric, because gun reviews are inherently required to use past experience to discuss topics, all gun reviews are inherently biased at the base level, even before we enter the discussion of free gear or other factors that I'll get into in a second. I'm going to take a step back and look at bias in general within the industry, just to provide some context here, because I think a lot of people have incorrect perceptions of bias. And this will feed to my final notion that you'll see in a bit. In the gun industry, experience-based bias is somewhat benign, even if you don't realize it. When you watch a Grand Thumb video or an admin results video, for example, let's just take these two because they have a similar style. Even if you don't realize it, you know there is different experience bias there. You know Grand Thumb's point of view, and you know admin results' point of view. And these are not the same baseline levels of experience. And I'm not even saying, one has less, one has more, though that is true. It's just how they approach the video. That is a bias. We know each of these individuals' experience level, perspective, so on and so forth. And that is a bias, right? You don't go to a Hickok video or a Brent, whatever the numbers are, video and view them as equal quality or equal types of information. They're weighed differently, and not necessarily even one's better than the other. They're just different perspectives. So to a degree, this is fine, right? For a quick example, a lot of people know my perspective is a civilian kind of preparedness mindset. Thus, one of my biases is that I think all rifles need magnification, even if you are in a city. Thus, my experience dictates, because of that, non-magnified optics must bring some pretty cool party tricks to the table. Otherwise, I won't view them favorably in the context of an intermediate cartridge rifle. That is a bias. When you come to my video, you must acknowledge that bias when I review magnified optics, or when I review red dots. So is the gun industry off the hook? Nah. This gets into the heart of the video finally. Let me talk about more important biases that can seriously compromise or destroy a reviewer's credibility or the quality of the review itself. Number one, this is the most famous one: personal gear bias. This one is weird. People state correctly that because someone buys something, they are often attached to that decision of buying that object, and thus are unable to acknowledge they might have bought something bad or flawed, even if it's an okay product. How many YouTube comment sections or Discord debates have you gotten into where you see someone defending to the death the choice of buying X product over all other products? And often you'll see these people getting very upset over minor things mentioned in a comment or review. Remember, I don't think I've actually ever seen a perfect product yet. So this is always bound to happen, and you always see these types of comments. Hence my joking dissertation that certain companies have cult-like tendencies, because that's part of a cult, right? Inability to acknowledge that faults can exist and that faults are fine. The baseline thing is this: people assign their self-worth to the product choice. So when that product, even if it's a minor thing or constructive in nature, any attack towards the product is a criticism not only to the product, but to the person, their lifestyle choice, whatever. This isn't just guns. This is everything. We've seen it all, right? Cell phones, cars, clothes, whatever. Criticism towards those objects is criticism towards the person in their eyes. Thus, in reverse, if that person were to make a review, they could not be objective about it, right? Because they are unable to acknowledge faults. This is actually one of the cases where I think gun reviewers are generally quite immune to this, even small ones like myself. I've reviewed a lot of my personal gear, but as you guys have seen, I am pretty critical of a lot of it. But more importantly, I see a lot of gear pass through my hands over the years, and I don't really get attached to it. And especially as you become a larger YouTuber, you're going to get gear that you know you will sell before you even started the product review. Because, well, I don't need another LPVO, or I don't need another flashlight. I'm going to review the product and then sell it. So I don't get attached to the product nearly as much, right? It takes a lot to earn a place in my, air quotes, stable. This is more of a thing for people that only buy a small amount of gear annually. And whatever they have to be happy with it, because it influences their viewpoint of their lifestyle. And if they made the wrong choice, they're going to be living with something that kind of fucks with their self-worth, if that makes sense. So yeah, I don't think this is nearly as much of an issue with gun reviewers as most people think, unless it's a very new gun reviewer, potentially like myself, that is reviewing something that they've had for a long time. But even then, right, it's kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy. Like, I have stuff for a long time because I thought it was good, right? I think that makes sense. Next, bias. I call this like critical bias, or maybe even contrarian. You guys know the reviewer types I'm talking about. Like me. This is a bias, and to a degree you could call this my bias. I view all products inherently aggressively and harshly. I nitpick and I test stuff hard. To a degree, I almost go into a review kind of holding the product to the best, a perfect product. Thus, I will always be let down, and I know I will always be let down because there's no such thing as a perfect product. Therefore, all reviews that I do are inherently, to a degree, not a super positive review, right? I've done positive reviews, but most of the time there is an element of, they could have done this better. People like me generally get painted as contrarians, and to a degree they are not necessarily wrong. But I think that's more of a factor of the general tendency of people to only do positive reviews, but that's a completely different side story. Recent review of mine, the Aimpoint Duty. Is it a bad optic? No. Does it have a niche? Yes. Why the negative review then? I view stuff critically. And I think if I do that, the consumer, or the consumer of my product, right, the viewer, you, will see the pros and the cons. And if you watch one of my reviews, in my opinion, right, obviously I'm biased towards myself, and you think, hey, this thing has issues, but I think I can live with that, and you buy the product, I think you, in that position, are better informed than the reverse version of, if I give the benefit of doubt to the product, and I kind of wash over the smaller things, and then that person buys the product, I think it's much more likely that that person in the second scenario is going to get blindsided or upset when they feel like I didn't give the real full picture, right? I prefer option one here of being critical with all of the flaws of being hypercritical and analytical in this stuff versus option two. Now, reality check, you can absolutely take this too far. There are entire channels, not only in the gun industry, but everywhere, based off of shitting on products as a primary profession, I guess, if we want to call it. Of course, personally, I think I'm walking the line. But am I? I don't know. I probably have gotten a couple reviews where I've gone overboard a little bit or maybe too much. I don't know. I try not to, but I can't say because I'm unable to review myself critically. So, as I said, combating bias. I am human and I have to try to walk that line of giving something the benefit of the doubt versus being critical, because sometimes it makes sense to give it to the benefit of the doubt and sometimes it needs to be critical, and it's very hard to walk that line. For example, Surefire review that I did quite a while ago. I was incredibly critical of a Surefire failure of mine. Now, here comes the question. A critical person will lean towards Surefires have issues, don't buy a Surefire. While a more positive reviewer will be like, well, it failed, but this is a sample size of 1. You be the determining factor, and only give it 30 seconds in the video, even though in my eyes that is a very big deal. Right? You see what I'm getting at here with biases? That's why I try to make a point of being quite open and putting my data first and then my conclusions second, so you can make the conclusions and then compare it to my conclusion later in the video. But at the end of the day, it's all still bias. All right, let's get into the meat of it. This is where bias gets really bad, and I think where bias utterly can ruin reviews. Like, critical bias still gives data, in my opinion, but these upcoming biases are enough to just torpedo something. Friendship bias. This is probably actually one of the most dangerous biases in the sense that no one talks about it. I'm telling you, you don't need to get a free product or be enamored by a product to enter the land of hardcore bias to the point of where it torpedoes your review. Pick your best friend. Actually, don't pick your best friend. You're probably willing to completely shit on him for fun. Pick a good friend. Now put him at the head design of an engineering department of a product or whatever. You know what I mean. And he talks to you about that product all the time, and that product is the tits for him. He poured his heart and soul into it for the last year or something. Now you review that product, and I'm saying you will, as almost a guarantee, you will package that review differently. If the product is good, hell yeah, cool. Not too big of a deal. But if the product has flaws, you're going to start glossing over some of those flaws, or you may package it differently, as I mentioned, right? For example, hypothetically, this product doesn't like PMags, doesn't work with PMags, but it likes metal mags. Whatever. And then you spend 20 seconds on that. Versus, this product doesn't like PMags, which is a major design flaw, and this thing needs to be rectified. That is entirely perspective, and often that's going to be heavily influenced on how you view a company. If you go soft on the flaws and you go hard on the pros, if you have a good friend in the industry that gave you that product, or you bought that product from, more importantly. Now, most people don't have their best friend in the industry, but typically, most of these people have a good relationship with the company they're reviewing the product of. Otherwise, that's what it is. You make connections by mistake or by chance. It's not a large community. You maybe met that guy at SHOT Show, and that guy keeps you in the loop of product development. You get cool first looks. They even ask you hey, yo, look at my product. Do you think I should change anything? And you give them a thing. That's a whole nother topic, right? If you're personally invested in the success of a product, or even if it's just your idea succeeding, that's a whole nother bias I probably won't get into because it's a small subset. But even if you buy this product and that person says, hey man, I want you to go ham and get your honest opinion. If you interact with this guy regularly, you will pull punches at best. And at worst, and I think this is very prevalent in the gun industry, and you have to be very cautious and critical to notice this, but you will review products that are completely packaged differently because of this relationship. I mean this respectfully. I'm sure I'll do it at some point. But how often do you hear the phrase, man, these guys are awesome. Great group of people that really care about their product. That, to me, sadly, even if it's true, is a gargantuan red flag. Not because it's not a good data point. I want to support real companies by real dudes. Dude stuff. Not some faceless military contractor company. But when someone says this, it always means there's a personal relationship. And if there's a personal relationship and that person was willing to disclose that personal relationship, well, I mean, You're human, I'm human, and your favorite big YouTuber, contrary to popular belief, is just as human. We will act differently depending on our relationship factor. That is a fact. Free gear and sponsorship. This is the one that everyone thinks is the main bias. I personally think the relationship bias is actually even more important in terms of biasing a review, but this one is very much important to talk about. I mentioned this before, but YouTube is a tough gig to make money off of it. These are a lot of people's livelihoods. In order to make high quality videos that you see on, all of your favorite big YouTubers, you need to go all in on it. And going all in on it means you need to subsist off of YouTube's income and alternate sources. And YouTube, guns, all that stuff is flashing before your eye as a daily revenue stream, open, close, and shit's constantly happen. This is not a normal 9 to 5 thing that people have to worry about, right? You get paid bi-weekly or whatever. YouTube, that's up in the air. Will this video be monetized? Will this video not be monetized? So on and so forth. So even if they're making good money right now, and it's questionable if anyone is really truly making good money, right? Take the 1% of the gun industry and compare it to the 1% of the stock market, and that income level does not match in the slightest. But regardless, the dream of being a gun tuber is always in limbo, even if you're currently making it. When you do the math, even if you look at channels that are 500,000 subs, they're actually not pulling in that many views, and most of those views are unmonetized, so you get the idea. This is a scary industry to be in, and I'm learning that every single day. This isn't, makeup reviews. Even the smallest low round count video will probably cost $500 or $1,000 on ammo, time, gas, and more. And then you factor in the cost of the product being reviewed, right? You buy the product and then you probably sell the product and take a loss. Oh, almost spilled my Pepsi. No other industry of reviews really has this to that degree. Maybe the computer industry, but. So when a company offers to take some of that burden, that financial burden off of you in exchange for gear, well, that's kind of nice. Now, obviously, there is surface level bias here. A company is giving you a product, thus you will review the product. There is an opportunity cost, right? A different product would have probably been reviewed, and now it's not because you're reviewing the product that was given to you. But to me, this one's fairly easily tackled. Most gun reviewers, at least me personally, only review shit that we care about and we might have bought anyway, right? Considering, once again, most of the time, cost, so on and so forth, is the stuff surrounding the review, the ammo, the gas, the time, receiving the product that we may actually just sell later. Doesn't really save as much money as you think it does. It just kind of eases the burden. So to a degree, that's not as big of a deal, in my opinion. The flip side is, if I review a product I don't give a shit about, even though it was free, well, if I can't give a shit about it, you most certainly won't, because, well, my channel attracts people that think like me to a degree. Thus, if I can't care about it, you can't care about it. Here's the bigger issue, though. The fear of getting gear for free and then putting out a negative review. That's where the bias comes in. This is multifaceted. As mentioned, you are likely already going to interact with someone to get said gear. Even if they give you the green light to go all out, it is tough. We're human. We have sympathy, we have conscientiousness, etc. I know if I tear this product to pieces, there is a group of 10 to 20 people that have spent their last 6 months, year, or longer working hard every day to make this product the best they thought it was. So it burns for them, and it burns for the reviewer, right? It feels bad. So the fear of doing that is already a strong motivation to ease the message a little bit. But even if you are a stone cold motherfucker, there are monetary and self-benefits and biases to prevent you from making a full-blown tear this guy a new asshole review. If I get gear from Spiritus, I don't, for the record, and I get, let's say, their Mark V placard that just came out. There is no question about it. There is benefit for me to put out a 100% green review on it if I package it properly and make it seem like a legit review. If I tear the Mark V placard a new asshole, I will likely never get another free Spiritus product again. Now, who knows? Maybe Spiritus comes out and says, nah, fam, that was some pretty good criticism. It's cool. But you can't know until after the fact, and that's a gamble. And if you get a spicy, juicy relationship with something like Primary Arms, Vortex, or Holosun, and you burn that bridge, and you gamble wrong, and they don't want anything to do with you, well, damn, you just lost access to their entire catalog. Furthermore, if you put out negative reviews and you get it wrong, right? Like people think, okay, that was a little harsh. Way too harsh, actually. That guy's just making a negative review for the sake of a negative review. Well, then you're actually going to cut off relationships that you didn't even know existed. Now, there are companies out there that are gluttons for punishment and absolutely only care about making the best possible product, thus they will seek out critical reviewers, but that is not the majority. Most companies are companies, and they're here to make money. So you have to realize that when you're getting a product, to a degree, they're paying for advertisement. Okay, let's wrap this up. Are there more biases? You bet your ass there are. I already mentioned a couple that I didn't really, linger on. These were a couple I just wanted to hone in on. What's the conclusion here? Is it impossible to make a good review when biases are involved? No. You absolutely can make a good review even if you get a free product, and you can review it excellently. That's not what this was about. This is me saying this. We, the gun reviewing community, and people in general, are all biased. But it goes beyond just experience bias. Those other biases I mentioned earlier require something. It requires you, if you are in pursuit of making the most objective review possible, you must acknowledge that there is bias. And that bias stacks up the closer the relationship gets. Only once you admit that you as the reviewer are imperfect can you make a good review, in my opinion. My biggest red flag for reviews is not, hey, I got this for free, or Raid Shadow Legends. No, that's fine. I don't care. My biggest red flag is this. Hey, I'm big friends with so-and-so. Great dude. Hey, here's a review on the thing he makes. Or, hey, I got this for free. Will I be biased? Absolutely not. Here on X and X Such channel, we are never biased and we review products objectively. To me, this is a big red flag. Because if you don't think you are biased, you have automatically slotted yourself, in my mind, as the most biased. Because we're operating under the assumption that if you get free review gear or you have personal relationships, you are by default biased. And if you don't acknowledge that, that bias will get you and you won't even realize it. Now, don't go out in videos looking for where people are saying, hey, Brass Facts here, I'm biased as fuck, now watch my video. No, people aren't going to say that, right? And it's probably good that they don't say that because people probably won't take it very well. But the point is you need to look into these videos and understand the things I've talked about here. I've talked to a lot of people about this before, and a non-insignificant portion say, why does this matter at the end of the day? I'll tell you why it matters. Number one, you are very likely, some of you watching some of my reviews, will buy a product based off of my recommendation. Now, money isn't everything, but it is a lot of things. It is our time, it is how we gain enjoyment, and it's something, in this case of a product, something we'll be stuck with for a while. Therefore, in a lot of ways, these product reviews are super important to get right, because you could burn someone really bad if they buy something and they figure out, wait, never mind, this guy completely led me astray. Not inflating my self-worth too much here, but a little bit. There are cops, LEO, military, or just civilians that are buying gear off of my recommendation, and that gear choice could very well end up being an important determination if they live or die, or someone else lives or die. Most of us are not flowing in the cash, and we only get 1 or 2 attempts when we're buying gear to get it right. And when I came into the gun industry, there was very little of that, and it was a shit show. The amount of times you would buy a piece of gear and you're like, wow, this sucks, and you'd have to go buy something else was staggering, right? So that's why I take this quite seriously, in my opinion. All right, let's talk about me for a second. My viewer, you, have an expectation of my content style being analytical, objective, and framed for civilian usage, and I generally come off critically. So, how will I behave moving forward? Will I be accepting free gear in exchange for a review? Yes. Will this bias me? Yes. The key thing is, I think at least, is that I know I will be somewhat biased, and I will do my best to combat said bias and amend my testing, my script, my analysis, whatever, and with the goal of achieving that, holy grail of a completely objective review. Regardless of if or if not I will burn said bridges. Will I change my packaging? God, I hope not. But who knows? That's the thing. I'm willing to admit it, even if I try my best, I may not make it. And to a degree, I will always be human, and subconscious bias is by nature very hard to combat. So for future videos where I have sponsorships, free gear, or even if it's just a regular video and it's on a topic I might already have dabbled in, understand it's not only necessary for the channel's survival, necessary of part of working in the industry to have relationships, to have free gear, to have sponsorships, right? I'm not condemning these. But also understand that the bias is here and everything that comes along with it. Be sure to always watch a video, not only mine, but others, where you critically ask, what are the biases here and how does that affect the review? Alright. Not sure if this video was a giant self-diss. Maybe? Regardless, I hope you enjoyed it and my thought process on the matter. Since you made it to the end, here is a dog video. Thanks for watching. I'll return you back to your regularly boog and gun review programming. This was a small detour. But see you guys later.
When will she notice? Oh shit. She noticed. Oh, too tired. No, stay. Go back. No! Go back. Go back. Couch. There you go. That's not your sleeping spot. Lie down. Is that a good spot? The side eye.